This bonus episode of the PaynePoints Podcast was recorded live during Kpop Social Night, the Podcast Festival, an event benefiting the National Alliance on Mental Illness. To learn more about Kpop Social Night, visit solo.to/KPSN, and to learn more about the National Alliance on Mental Illness and what they do, go to nami.org. Thanks for listening. All right, are we ready to get started with the interview?
I think we're ready to get started.
So. All right, Mom, do you want to just jump right into the intro as we normally do?
I think so. We just want to welcome everybody here to the PaynePoints Podcast.
Oh, wow.
It's
tongue twister.
Great job.
Yeah.
Good start.
This is our first ever podcast festival, and clearly I don't know what I'm doing.
Does anybody ever?
Thanks everybody for being here. Our podcast, PaynePoints Podcast, is about small businesses. And so we thought that it would be great to have some K-pop businesses on and talk about the business of K-pop. I'm Sarah Harbuck, the host. My co-host is Kristin Ellis right here. And our technical producer and all things social media is Megan Harbuck right here.
The one who keeps us running.
Yeah, she keeps everything going. So welcome everyone who's listening. We have some special guests that are going to rep their businesses today. And ladies and gentlemen, if you will, I'm going to start with Chelly. If you'll introduce yourself and tell us the name of your business and a brief description on what kind of product or service you offer.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hi.
Good to see you again.
I'm Chelly from Rose Colored Prints. I run a fan-made K-pop merchandise business. It's kind of just making shirts, slogans, stationery, buttons, name it all. I could probably do it.
Jack of all trades in the K-pop world. Thank you, Chelly, for coming on and talking with us again. Cynthia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
My name's Cynthia. I'm the owner of Kpop Seoul Shop. We were probably the first K-pop site for international fans in the United States ever.
Wow.
Again, way back in 2015-ish. And I started because I didn't see anything that I liked, and it was taking forever for shipping to get here at that time. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a really big interest in international fans, and I just felt like it was hard to shop. It was hard to shop in things that were like American sizes. And so I specifically catered to American sizes and plus sizes. And so everything in our catalog is available. Like every design is available as plus size, including dresses, crop tops, t-shirts, that kind of thing. It's all original designs as well. Like I saw a lot of the designs that were available, especially back then, was just like the logo on a shirt. And I was like, let's make this fun. Let's make it something people want to wear that's stylish, but doesn't scream, I'm a crazy K-pop fan. I know I am. And so that's basically.
Nice. Good deal.
Nice.
We have several from 82K Hip Hop and Choose K Magazine. I believe it's Mel, Brianna, and Key. Hi, guys. How are y'all?
Hi. Hi.
Why don't y'all, I don't know who wants to be the spokesperson right now, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what you guys do? And yeah.
Key.
Okay, I could go. So we're on the 82K Hip Hop Podcast. Can y'all hear me well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
go. I haven't plugged in my mic yet, so I was like, because I'm on my phone. I don't have Wi-Fi for the past month, so.
Oh, no.
Sorry about
That's
that.
awful.
We're the 82K Hip Hop Podcast, so we cover topics about Korean hip hop and R&B. And our mission is sort of to, spread that genre of Korean music sort of to the West, since it's less covered compared to, K-pop. And to, highlight smaller upcoming artists, whether it be Korean American artists over here or, Korean artists in Korea who you don't hear as much about out west. And we sort of work as a news source. We cover stuff like drama or just competition shows, just music in general. We're affiliated with, or we also run the website Choose KHIPHOP, which is a news website. So we do interviews on our podcast, and we cover news or releases over on our website as well.
Very good. Very good. Very cool. Awesome, guys. Well, I know the big thing for most K-pop fans is the memory of what sort of launched and catapulted them into the fandom, if you will. So we'll start with Chelly again. What was the catalyst that started your K-pop love journey and then the eventual creation of your business?
Yeah, it started when I was on YouTube. I would watch a lot of I watched the reaction video for K-pop on YouTube, and I really fell in love with EXO. And once I fell in love with EXO, I went into other groups. And when the first group that I really liked, which was 17, I decided to make fan-made merch since I noticed that there was not any merch to wear to the concert. I needed an outfit. So
that seems like a recurring theme for most American K-pop fans. So it's great that you guys saw that need and then kind of just slipped right on in there and filled it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I made a bunch of 17 shirts, tour shirts, so I could give to my friends. And then I noticed that a lot of other fans really liked them. So I decided to make more and then make with other groups anytime they came around to Texas.
Cool.
Nice.
Very
Yeah.
good.
So
I remember that from when you were on our podcast. That was fun memories. Cynthia, what about you? What was the kind of catalyst for you launching into the K-pop world?
Actually, a hilarious story. I had just moved from the Midwest to the East Coast to Maryland, and I was walking on the street and I forgot where I was going, and I twisted my ankle. And so for 2 weeks, I couldn't go anywhere. And so I was just flipping on the TV and I saw these guys dancing and I was like, wow, they're really good. Who the heck are they? And it happened to be SHINee at that time. And it was when SHINee Hello came out and what else? Lucifer. And so it spiraled. I was like, oh, wow. So I just kept watching the channel and I was discovering more artists. And so as soon as I got well enough to move, of course, I tried to do the Lucifer choreography, which I still never learned. But I twisted my ankle and that's how I became a K-pop fan. It's been such a black hole of K-pop ever since then. I don't know any relevant American artists.
I've done that where I've gotten ill and had to be in bed and you're flipping through Netflix or something and you find some show or something that you just sort of get sucked into that you never would have probably found otherwise. Yeah. So I like that. That's a great answer.
Very, very serendipitous. Very nice. Yeah.
We will start with Mel. Mel, what was the catalyst for you in the whole K-pop world? What made you a fan?
I started listening to Super Junior in 2009.
Oh, wow.
Ooh. I started. Then
like an OG fan.
OG fan. Yeah. I've been listening to EXO, Red Velvet, SHINee. Yeah. I've been covering K-pop concerts here in Manila. I've watched Super Junior during their last tour. So it's actually the OG. I've been into second gen. I'm into second gen K-pop group. So
Most people I've heard, it's about 2014, 2015 was when their starting point was. So when you said 2009, I was like, wow, yeah,
Yeah,
you go back a ways.
2009. Yeah.
Good deal. Key, what about you? What was your entrance into K-pop?
Honestly, it's a weird story. Well, it's not that weird, but it's like a sort of disappointing story because I had the chance to get into K-pop pretty early on, like at the start of BTS. I remember because I went to Japanese school because I'm Japanese, and for whatever reason, BTS became really popular in Japan much earlier than it became internationally.
Yeah.
And everyone around me was like, dude, BTS EXO. And I was like, I listen to rock music. I hate these mainstream BS stuff. What are boy bands? Ugh.
I'm too cool for that.
And for like 5 years, that was like elementary, middle schoolish. Like 5 years later, or maybe like 4 years later, I went to like a Asian culture night at my school, and there were a bunch of people who were dancing like BTS songs, and I think EXO. What was it like? The album which had like the meter, like the engine meter or something on it. I forgot which one it was.
Was that Tempo?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, Tempo.
Tempo.
Yeah. And I was like, wait, this actually slaps. What the heck? Wait a sec. I was always making fun of people like, oh, boy groups, but went home. I was like, BTS, Blackpink. Oh shit, this is good. I can't let anyone know I'm into this kind of stuff. God,
Secret,
I still
underground
like
secret fan.
edgy. Yeah, but then like after a while, like maybe like half a year, I think I found like Stray Kids. I watched like the Stray Kids like debut show, and I was like, I can't hide this any longer. I like Korean music, guys. And yeah, since then, I guess I've been into like the newer K-pop groups, Stray Kids, ATEEZ, Dreamcatcher, sort of that side of it. Just so I can retain my like, oh, I'm into edgy stuff. It's just edgy boy bands, like something. And I think I got into like K-hip-hop as well through that, just because I was like, I really like rappers, really like rap music. I like Korean rap. Oh shoot, they just have normal Korean rap music. Maybe I'll listen to this too. And
Good deal. Brianna, what about you?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. So I was watching the American Music Awards back in 2017, and I think that was the first time that BTS came on. And
Yes, I believe so.
saw them and I was like, wow, this is really different. I've never seen anything like this before. And unfortunately, Korean music wasn't really on my radar at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I just kind of went down the rabbit hole and I started, checking groups. I was really into EXO. And then from there, I just kind of naturally progressed on into the more, Korean hip hop, Korean side of things. But I still do listen to some K-pop groups. I listen to Mamamoo, G-Idol, of course EXO. I love them. But yeah, that's my story.
Good deal. Well, we want to just make a quick note. Anyone who is listening or watching in our Zoom room here, if you want to type in the chat a question that you think of that you want us to ask, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got that pulled up and we can see it. Ladies, what is a way to set yourself, for Cynthia and Chelly, especially with your merchandise businesses, where you sell product? How do you market to your customers? Is it there is a specific genre that you tend to kind of gravitate towards? Do you advertise in specific places? Kind of tell everybody, what your process is there. Because I imagine that when you're in a niche market, you kind of have to be creative on how you do those things. Right. Cynthia, you want to take it away first?
Yeah, sure. I was me first. I had to do my own target demographic data. I had to make the data myself. It did not exist. What the K-pop international / USA demographic was, that data was non-existent. So I went to KCON, I looked around and I got some general idea of like looking around in the crowd of like what the average K-pop person looked like. Plus I was in a pretty large online K-pop group called Echo. And that was like one of the first Facebook K-pop groups, and I would just look and see like where people were from, of general ages, and just take those demographics and keep that in mind as I was going forward with my marketing plan. And then I started going to events and sponsoring events like this one. I started sponsoring events to try to get like some more brand identity awareness, and then also sponsoring like different people that were going to events that had a bigger following that were being looked over because they are not Korean. And during that time, only Korean or Asian people were getting any kind of recognition in that space. So it was actually really easy and very cheap for me to pull big name people to like have them wear my products and promote my products and collaborate with. And so I've basically done a ton of collaborations with like up and comers and people that's well established in the industry to get my brand out.
That's very smart. That's investing in your own business to get your name out there. That's a risk, that a lot of people are really afraid to take. So
you brought up a very great point that I don't think a lot of people understand is that, this market didn't really exist. You guys created it in a sense because you were fans of something in another country on the other side of the world, and you wanted to bring that here. And so you said you had to create the market research yourself.
Yeah, and it was cool when KCON actually like 2 years later released the demographics of like who comes out. I was right about the target demographics. Like no one would have thought back then that a big portion of like the passionate fandom in America were Black K-poppers. And so I knew that because most of my friends that I was coming across were Black K-poppers, and that it was actually a small representation of Asians in America that enjoyed K-pop, especially back then. So yeah, it's actually been interesting to watch it shift as K-pop has become more mainstream. Sure. You're seeing the demographics change as well.
Shelly, what about you? What was your, you started creating things that you could wear to concerts. Is that where is that how it started for you? Your friends and your friend group just sort of were your kind of market research base, and then you created things off of that?
Yeah. I was very close with, on Twitter I had like a lot of friends on Twitter, like not even like from Texas. I had even California, New York, up in northern states, even internationally. So I'm very friendly online, and whenever I started to release new designs, I'd be like, hey guys, I'm thinking of releasing this shirt or releasing this product. What do you guys think? I would get a lot of feedback from them, change things. If people said, oh, this would look better, I would get a lot of feedback from supporters. And it was really great because I was able to build lots of friendships with a lot of people. And they also would see sneak peeks of things that I'm working on. And that eventually led to like one of my first vendoring events here in Houston, Texas. And it was really great because I started to realize like what sells here in Houston. And it was really cool to see all different kind of people like coming out to the events and seeing what groups were more popular than others. And I would like always make sure to keep up to date with who's more popular, because that's what everyone's going to be asking for at the event.
Yeah, definitely. And using social media to promote, it's probably the new advertising these days,
That's what you do, especially on a small business when you don't have the big budget for.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or,
nobody listens to the radio anymore anyway.
Yeah. I don't for you guys, Mel and Key and Brianna running a podcast, I'm sure we have a lot in common there. Getting your podcast out there and getting it some attention and getting people to listen can be challenging. We know. So what did you guys do to kind of promote the podcast with this very niche, K-pop hip hop? How did that process work for you guys?
I guess I could start off. The first, we had a platform, Discord, where we sort of were based because that's how we all got in contact, and that was there's like a large K-hip-hop server on there where the idea sort of formed, and people on there seemed like sort of intrigued or excited about the concept because they're like, oh yeah, like that doesn't exist yet. Like we'd be interested in checking it out. So one of the ways we started getting our first sort of following was on Discord with people who were interested on different servers. We went on like a couple different, like K-hip-hop servers, K-R&B servers, sort of niche like artist servers, and we're like, hey, we're doing this sort of, podcast. Are you interested? What sort of ideas do you have for this? Just so we could like get an idea when we were starting out of what people were looking for, what people wanted, so that we could start building it, catering to like what people were interested in, because there wasn't really anything to base it off of either. And I guess we also used social media. I think we could talk more about that, like advertising on social media or Instagram and things like that.
Yeah, so yeah. I will say it's really hard to build up a social media following, especially if you start with absolutely nothing. I'm sure you guys know all about that. Kind of a struggle in that aspect, but I've just been, I ran a promotion recently. I've never run an Instagram promotion before, but I ran a promotion for our podcast, and so that was interesting. But yeah, I mean, mainly all of our listeners and stuff come from Discord, just because Discord is such a huge thing these days.
Mm-hmm. Did you see much traffic from your Instagram promotion?
Yeah, we got quite a bit of traffic. We didn't really get many new followers though, which is what I was hoping for. So I was like, shoot.
Yeah. We've noticed that for us collaborating, with other small businesses and doing the podcast, but then we've had Eve Pink as one of the big K-pop merchandisers on as a guest, and they have a huge following on their social media. And so they promoted a lot of stuff with us, and we did like giveaways and things like that. And so that's the only reason why we even have the social media following we have, is because some of these bigger businesses that have gigantic followings promoted us and sort of got us a few extra followers that we wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
I think that it's important to collaborate with others in any sort of small business or project that you're working on. Being able to connect with others, like an event like this, is very important to networking.
Yeah. Networking is definitely a big thing.
Yeah. I think that for most small businesses, whether you're selling a product or a service or an idea, the collaborative sort of spirit is necessary, and for everybody's success. You guys are all part of this industry, part of this genre that is, got these voracious fans. Do you guys notice that they dictate to you the kind of products or merchandise you have in your store, or the kind of bands that you guys will cover in your podcast? How does that work? Whoever wants to start. Anybody have?
You may have to tell somebody to start.
Well, I can go.
Yeah, sorry, we're not used to so many people at one time.
That's a good question. I do I'm in a bunch of K-pop Facebook groups, and I definitely like to watch and see people's reactions to like different comebacks, scandals, etc. And that does dictate what I will and what I won't promote. You never want negative. I don't want negative publicity. Even though they say all publicity is good publicity, I'd rather not. And so that's kind of how I guess stay up to date on the news, the scandals, like how we're dragging BTS recently over that whole auto-tune issue with the latest song. And so it just keeps me up to date. Also a great place to find memes, which also helps with my social media marketing. And so it definitely, I definitely keep my ear out to what the fans are saying they want, and who they really, really, really hate. Like Jay Park just got dragged very recently, a lot. And so you won't be seeing any new Jay Park merchandise. So yeah, their opinions really matter.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, they're the ones buying your stuff, so you probably want their input.
Yeah.
Chelly, do you let the fans dictate to you? Do you have your, Twitter followers say, hey, can you make so-and-so? How does that work?
Recently, like before, when I was first starting off, I really focused on like BTS because I noticed that's when I got the most sales compared to like smaller groups. But once I grew a little more, I realized like, hey, you know what? I really want to do this smaller group because I really enjoy them. And maybe other fans who listen to them realize that, this smaller group doesn't get as much exposure, start focusing on smaller groups. And it's really cool that, like, for example, one group that I really like focus on right now is the boys. And I started to stan them early on, like before it was Right Here era. And so I started to do a bunch of stuff for them. And then now I realize how small group, and a lot of fans now come to me as like, oh my gosh, you have so many things, like, oh my goodness. And it's really cool to see, like, to focus on small groups and bigger groups because you see the exposure they get from all types of fans.
Right. So you've been able to market to promote the smaller groups, and the people that can't find, fans of those smaller groups that can't find other stuff there are able to come to you for things that they can't find anywhere else. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good deal. What about you guys in your podcast? Do you cover hip hop groups that, are super popular or that are your favorites? Or do you have a following of people who listen and say, hey, we want to hear about fill in gap with group
or artist?
Brianna, would you like to answer that question?
I would say most of our followers are they mainly only follow the names, the bigger label, the more well-known artists. So we like to cover things related to them, but then also like to try and throw in, like, let's say smaller artists, independent artists, stuff like that, just to hopefully connect those artists to a new fan base, because that's really what we're passionate about, is spotting those smaller artists who don't necessarily have, the level of popularity these other ones. And it's kind of hard because with pop and stuff like that, the hip hop, there's always going to be very controversial figures. So it is hard sometimes. We feel like, we're all afraid to talk about these in a way, just because we're afraid of the reaction we might get. So a little bit hard.
Yeah. We've noticed that with our podcast, having to kind of keep things, certain things that we're passionate about in our personal lives, trying to stay as neutral as possible and not, bring up anything too controversial.
Gotta keep it PC.
Yeah. Gotcha. We totally feel you on that one. K-pop is really riding a wave right now. I feel like I'm not like in that world. I bet everybody that you guys have mentioned, I know what they are. My kids listen to that stuff. They talk about it all the time. They've gone to multiple concerts over the last 5 or 6 years.
Probably
7,
about 4
years.
Like that.
It feels like it's been a long time. So it's a big thing right now. It's very popular. How long do you expect this sort of wave to kind of keep going? And do you see what kind of long-term viability for your businesses, your podcast, your magazine? What is that going to look like as, say, maybe the wave sort of, dies back down?
What's your contingency plan?
Yeah. I mean, it could be that this is the thing that's going to last. I mean, sometimes they do, Hey, the Beatles are still popular sometimes.
That's true.
So, Cynthia, we'll start with you again. We'll just kind of go back in a circle here. What do you think is the long-term viability?
That's funny because, like, when I first got into this, no one knew about K-pop,
right?
And until I basically made it my job to promote K-pop, convert various members of my friends and family circle to K-pop during this time. So I'm always ahead. Like I'm always ahead of like the curve of whatever's going to be popular. And I definitely see the rise in K-hip-hop happening. And I keep telling people, once America discovers K-hip-hop, it's going to really explode on just how wide-reaching the fandom is. Because K-pop, of course, is more poppy. And so you're only going to reach a certain demographic of Americans with a pop sound. But when you hear the real talent that's in K-hip-hop that hasn't caught on yet, that's going to pull a lot of old school hip-hop, a lot of younger crowd. It's going to pull a wider variety. So I definitely see space and growth for K-pop for a very long time. And because K-pop has such a high like production value, I don't see how it's going to ever not be anymore. It's like you rip the Band-Aid off, and they're just going to shine for a very long time because K-pop,
I think that too,
a lot of work.
K-pop fans tend to like cover a huge wide range of ages and, you know, ethnicities and, you know, cultures. So it's not just like all the 20-year-old kids. I mean, I'm always surprised at who I run into that's my age or older that are like, oh yeah, I love BTS, you know, or whoever. And you're just like, I wouldn't have expected that, but there you go. So I think it does. I think you're right. I think because it covers such a huge like range of fans and not just
I'm
particular.
36, so I actually gave birth to my son while listening to K-pop, and I was like converting the nurses. I was like, you gotta hear, like in between contractions, I was like, you gotta hear this Girls' Generation song. It's so good. Did you know they collaborated with Snoop Dogg, Akon? So it's gonna be here for a long time. I'm glad it's happening because it's only gonna be great for my business. And K-hip-hop is next to really blow, and I'm definitely talking to the powers that be, the gatekeepers of the hip hop community, and trying to get them on board with it. And it's coming soon.
Yeah,
good deal.
That's something we were talking about earlier. You know, for us that are a little on the older side, you know, relating sort of the 90s, early 2000s, you know, the boy bands and that sort of thing. But something that I've noticed that's different about K-pop is the community that has built up. And part of that is social media and people like you guys with your businesses and your podcasts and magazines and who are getting this out. But there is a community built around K-pop, built of, you know, like Sarah mentioned, so many different people of different ages and demographics, and it's just relatable to everybody that I don't necessarily see it going
anywhere.
Even if the music changes, I feel like the community behind it is going to stay.
Yeah.
You know, and even doing things like we're doing today, you know, raising money for, you know, mental health awareness and things like that. This is a thing that the K-pop community, excuse me, you know, does a lot of stuff that and a lot of other just fandoms don't do. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Charlie, do you agree? Do you feel like the longevity is there because of all the things Cynthia mentioned, things that are up and coming, and just the wide fan base itself?
Yeah, definitely the community for K-pop is very strong. Like we have a very tight-knit bond together, especially here in Houston. It's very strong. Like we have like probably like cup sleeve events. So like K-pop cup sleeve events is like, you know, you go to a tea place, local tea place here in Houston, and you go order your drink, and then you get like your little K-pop cup sleeve. Like it's like a coffee sleeve, and it has like say BTS, Blackpink, whatever group. We have those like every weekend over here, like, and you see like the same people going, because I would host some, and then people would be like, oh my god, it's so cool going to all these events. Like it's not stopping at all. And here in Houston, we're also right now at the moment we're having a Seoul festival, and it's really cool to see the wave of K-pop is, you know, not stopping at all.
I like that there's a you know, the mixing of cultures, you know, learning about, you know, Korean culture through this particular sort of medium, and, you know, opening up to a whole new world that I might not have been exposed to otherwise. So I think that also too, in the world that we live in, educating, you know, people on other cultures and ways of life, and just the way these, you know, young men and women, you know, create art. Key, I want to direct the question to you because Cynthia said that, hip hop, K-hip hop is kind of like the next wave of things, and y'all's podcast is all about that. Do you agree with her? And what do you see kind of the future looking like for you guys?
Well, I guess I was sort of like not necessarily different, but I guess like I had a sort of different hypothesis about just K-pop and Korean music.
Sure.
In general, I guess I always sort of thought, or had this idea that perhaps K-pop is going to be sort of like rock music was before. Just because, I feel like there are a lot of similarities in like fandoms, the way the community works, like what you were mentioning with like sort of fundraising and things like that, and how like a lot of BTS fans, like with the recent, like BLM events or with like Asian hate, like a lot of times they rally to learn political events or just things outside of just music, which reminded me of like rock music. I also thought of like Nirvana and Kurt Cobain and like the sort of fandom there, which I think made me think, K-pop isn't always going to be what it is today. It's not always going to be as big, but it is always going to be around, and there's always going to be fandoms or people who are fans of it, the way there's still really devout rock fans these days, even though it's not like always charting the way it would have like a couple decades ago. So I think K-pop's always going to be around, just in different shapes and forms. With K-hip-hop, I guess I don't think it's ever going to be bigger than K-pop, just because I think one of the like allures of K-pop is that it's sort of like a bit foreign and a bit like different.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I've always wondered sort of about like what got K-pop this big, and I've had this like concern. This is sort of like a tangent. I'll keep it short. That,
No,
like,
go ahead.
Part of what got it so big was like this, not like fetishization, but sort of like the always like weirdness around like Asian media, which people in the West always have. Like, oh,
Definitely.
it's so different.
Okay,
It's so, weird. And I think K-hip-hop doesn't have that, which might mean that it's not going to like draw in as much of like a fan base the way K-pop does. But I also think because it is more normal, or it is more like similar to what you see in like Western music, it's just in a different language, I think it has a potential to like I guess grow in a different way, because I think there's less of like or at least I've seen less of like a like stan culture around K-hip-hop. It's just people who like hip-hop over here and are like, oh, Korean hip-hop is also, like good, they're talented artists, I'll listen to it along with my normal hip-hop or my normal, stuff I listen to the radio. And I think because of that, I'm not worried about like there being a sudden like drop in it. I think people who like Korean hip-hop or Korean R&B are going to like it for a long time. And there's never going to be like a gigantic surge in it, but because of K-pop's rise, I think there are going to be people who are like more like aware of it or more interested in it. And so I think there's never going to be like the huge spike and huge like downfall, but I think I do agree with what everyone's saying, that it's getting more attention, and I think there is more of like a space for it and a spotlight for it for people who like that type of music, who like old school rap, or who like trap or anything like that, to be like, oh, people from other cultures are doing this kind of music just as well, and I hope those artists get respect as well.
I definitely see that correlation you made, where K-pop kind of had this sort of novelty of foreign, interest, this foreign entity kind of coming in, and everybody's kind of, and then hip hop definitely has its roots to some extent here in the United States. And so it's kind of normal, it's just in a different language, like you were saying. So I definitely can kind of see that. But I think that because hip hop has always been so big here in the US, kind of putting the K-pop stamp on hip hop and putting, that twisting it that direction, I can definitely see it becoming a much more mainstream thing and acceptable. I mean, I think it already is mainstream. I mean, these groups are on these big, television shows, the Grammys and the AMAs, and they get recognition. They're on TV interview shows, late night talk shows.
James Corden, Jimmy
Yeah,
Kimmel,
like, you
James
know,
Fallon, yeah, those guys.
so I
get
think it'll
Jimmy
only
in.
help,
Yeah.
you know, if the tide is Cynthia's saying is turning in that direction, I think it can only really solidify the longevity of this particular genre. And I think that's great that you guys have all tried to capitalize on that. And speaking of which, you know, earlier, Cynthia, you said something about, you know, not wanting, you know, negative press isn't always good, but sometimes there can be a negative connotation just within, you know, general media about K-pop, where there's like the stereotypical sort of, you know, oh, it's the bubblegum, you know, there's some negative things that get said.
There's always drama.
There's always drama. You know, or there's, you know, particular idols and individuals that, you know, do something problematic, or, you know, news comes
people
out.
Are human.
Right. You know, how do you guys take those negative things that happen within this industry and turn them into something positive that you can maximize on? Or do you just skip over it entirely? Cynthia, we'll start with you.
Being a OG Black K-pop fan, ooh, we have been through some things. We continue to go through some things. But I like that we do, like the whole J Park fiasco that happened not too long ago. I'm happy for it because it opened up the door for us to talk about, you know, them putting Kai in locks for the previous albums, and like the new K-pop fans that are new to the fandom. The first thing they're seeing is J Park, but then I'm like, hey, let's talk about your favorite idol groups who have had the same hairstyles on them in their videos and photo shoots, etc. And let's just have a deeper conversation about, like, you know, autonomy. I think it's actually really great. I enjoy that these come up, because then we can talk about the difference between the autonomy of person and creativity someone like J Park has of creating a video, especially him being from here, versus K-pop idols who have their entire image crafted by their companies. Mm-hmm. And then we have to talk about where we draw the line. I think it's great. I lean into those conversations. I mean, like, I wouldn't still be here as a K-pop fan if I couldn't handle some faux pas and scandals by our faves. So I'm happy for it. I think it's good. I think it's healthy. As culture as a whole in America is changing, I think it's good that we talk about what we can expect from people internationally as acceptable behavior, and what we should put on them as what they should and should know about, and even not owning up to their mistakes and getting over those and changing and learning. Because a lot of these people, they're young. Like, they're young, they're not from here, they don't understand a lot of the cultural nuances that's going on, that's very, very heated in the States. And so I think nothing but good can come from these waves of scandals, especially when it comes to cultural appropriation. So I'm happy for it.
Take the lemons and make lemonade, right? Yes. Shelly, is that your philosophy, to kind of turn the whatever negative can be part of the genre into something good that you utilize?
Kind of similar. I do notice a lot of, you know, cancel culture and, you know, lots of drama on like Twitter, social media, you know, about certain things that pop up, you know, in the K-pop world. And most of the time I am like kind of in the back, like just observing and looking, like, you know, kind of like the Mean Girls scene where everyone's fighting and then you're just in the back kind of like, what is going on? That's kind of how I am with like certain things, because I kind of in the back, just, you know, in the back, just observing. I never get into like heated arguments with no one.
Just ride the wave until it's over.
Yeah. I always look at like both perspectives, see like what's going on. You know, I want to be the person that, you know, is in the middle. You know, nothing.
That's me.
Nothing.
We're so much alike.
Yeah, nothing. No drama. I want to be drama free.
Yeah, I can see you two being like best friends. Ladies of 82K hip hop, what do you guys, I mean, you know, the hip hop world in just normal Western music can be fraught with all kinds of negative things and negative press. So what do you guys do whenever something like that comes up in the K-pop world to, you know, maximize and turn it into a positive for your fans? Mel, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I think we for K hip hop, we talk about the dramas, the issues, but we're trying to stay positive for the sake of the fans. So I think it's less toxic for in terms of for K-hip-hop than K-pop, because I encountered a lot when I'm fangirling to Super Junior.
Yeah, I mean, I think that anything that you can turn into, you know, something good, whether, you know, it doesn't seem like it normally, you know, is a good thing for everybody. And, you know, there's going to be drama or toxicity in just about any kind of genre.
Everybody has their own
There's
opinions.
There's a lot. Yeah. I encountered a lot when I was fangirling to Super Junior whenever there's some issue dragging the boys. So I encountered a lot on Twitter, on social media. So when I hook to K-hip hop, there's like toxic, but there's some dramas. You can avoid it, but you know, it's something that we need to be positive than talking about the issues there.
Yeah.
And I think there's like a way to handle that kind of stuff like productively, you know.
Yeah.
And I think especially with, or what I've noticed with K-hip hop is I feel like a lot of the fans are a bit older, which means a lot of times you're able to have those conversations about like cultural appropriation or about like certain other issues, like with like there have been like a couple of scandals recently which we covered, like the NBA scandal, which is like a mix of like sexual harassment, possible mental health issues, various things which like, you know, deserve a certain level of respect and like integrity which you're keeping up. And I think when you have like slightly older fans, it's easier to have those conversations, especially since the fan base is a bit smaller, so you don't know a lot of the people and there's less anonymity. So I think that's like a good thing. We always try to handle it in like, to the extent that we can talk about those issues or we want to, or we feel comfortable with it, just like respectfully leaving it up to like conversations which, you know, more like the people who should be talking about it and give space for people whose voices should be heard and things like that, you know. And I think that's all you really can do.
Yeah, those conversations can be difficult, but it's always good to have them, because anytime you have a conversation like that, it opens your minds, and it gets information out there and encourages people to look at things from different perspectives, which is never a bad thing. So yeah.
Brianna, you have anything you want to add to that, or did Mel and Keek cover it for you?
I think they pretty much covered. I did want to agree with what Cynthia was saying. I mean, it sucks when there's drama, it sucks when there's scandals and stuff, but I mean, at the same time, it's good because it opens a door for us to, you know, talk about the things that are going on that shouldn't be going on, you know, like, you know, cultural appropriation, and recently with the park thing. I mean, there was a lot of animosity, but at the same time, people brought up good things about it. So I think it's important to try to see the positives in these situations.
Yeah. And maximize on them in the best way possible for the, you know, the community and for, you know, for your business. We have a few more minutes, and I wanted to kind of wrap up by asking, where do you all see yourself and your businesses in the coming years? What do you want to do? What do you want to add on? How do you want to grow? Cynthia, we'll start with you. What do you plan for the future?
I like to do more collaborations. Like one of my favorite things to do, especially, is to collaborate with like companies that are doing something different in this space. So like companies that are all minority owned or are very pro LGBT. I really want to do more of that. I started doing that before COVID. I want to do more about highlighting other influencers that, of course, don't get the amount of space that they should be getting in the K-pop community, that because they don't fit that box. So I would definitely want to expand more, and I see myself also doing a lot more in the plus size space, especially now that K-pop is more mainstream. There's even more need for just a variety of stylish plus size options. Like a lot of places only go up to like an XL, and that cuts out, especially as our base grows in age. It really makes it so that you're stuck in a t-shirt all the time. And not like a cool jacket or a purse or whatever.
As a plus size woman, I appreciate that very much.
Tell everybody where they can find you online real quick.
Kpop Seoul Shop. It's on Facebook, Instagram. That's our handle.
Okay.
And kpopseoulshop.com is where you can buy all the merchandise. And we do custom items. So like if you don't see something you like, what I do is I make custom items for the same price as if you saw it in our shop already. There's like no markup.
Good deal. Awesome. Charlie, what about you? What's the future hold for you?
Yeah, I definitely want to have my own, physical location here in Houston.
Shelly, we're having some technical difficulties with you. Can we?
We'll come back.
Yes,
Yeah.
we'll
come circle back to you.
You sound a little bit like a
Years,
robot.
that's definitely the future plan.
There we go.
Like even right now, if it's just starting off, that's great. I really want to give my product. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Zoom is not being our friend today.
Yeah. We'll come back to you in just a second. Mel, Key, Brianna, what does the future hold for your podcast and your magazine news channel?
I think I'm looking forward to expand the podcast, collaborations, interview with other artists, other K-R&B and K-hip-hop artists.
Good deal. Key, Brianna, do you have anything you want to add?
So we definitely have a lot of big dreams with our podcast and in our website. I don't want to get into too much detail, but
sure.
We will be making our YouTube debut soon, so that's exciting.
Yes.
But we would love to have some big and some bigger on our podcast, but ultimately the goal is still going to be to try and spotlight as many smaller artists as we can. So hopefully we'll just continue to grow and go up.
Good deal. Key, same for you?
I guess, yeah, but also I think, no, I don't know why I said yeah. Yeah, but also I think, at least personally, I've also been trying to expand the type of content we have along with our YouTube channel so that there'd be a variety of ways, not just the podcast or, news articles, but different, fun content, which people who are getting into the genre aren't really sure, how to engage with this genre and be a place where people could learn about different artists, maybe have artist bios, maybe have get to know these artists things, do sort of playlists was a big thing which I wanted to do, just because I think it's sort of harder to get into artists compared to K-pop, just because you don't have artist playlists because they aren't big enough on Spotify, or there isn't enough of a English fan base to ask other people if you don't know. So to create sort of a community space and use Choose K-Hip-Hop, our website and our podcast, to sort of create a place where people could come together. Yeah.
Okay. Tell everybody where they can find you guys, your website and your podcast and all that stuff.
Yeah. So our website is choosekhiphop.com. All our articles, interviews, even our podcast links are on there. On social media, we use Instagram a lot. So you could find us at Choose K-Hip-Hop, and you could find us at 82 K-Hip-Hop Podcast. So that's where we post all our updates and clips of our podcast. So yeah, it's exciting.
Awesome. All right, Chili, we're going to try again. Tell everybody where you want to be in the future.
Yeah, can you guys
It's yes and no. I almost feel like the internet connection is a little bit rough on your end, but could you let us know where we can find you? Because we did get kind of the gist of what you were saying earlier. Zoom pushed it through real fast.
Yes, hoping for a concrete location. But where can everybody find you right now?
Yeah, you could find me on Instagram, so Rose Colored Prints, and I also have a website, and it's rosecoloredprints.com.
Very good. Well, thank you all for being on. We're basically out of time. I could have talked to you guys for much longer. I had so many more questions.
Yeah, it was great.
But,
I know.
We want to thank everybody for joining us and being a part of this. And we wish everyone much success in the future. And yay for raising mental health awareness and money for the cause.
Yes. Thank you for being here. It was great to meet you all and talk to you. Thanks so much.
All right. Y'all have a great rest of your Saturday, and we'll see you next time.
Enjoy the rest of the festival.
Bye, guys.
Bye.